Hello, everybody. Today is December 23rd, and we're doing business and social media news today.
It's almost Xmas.
It is. I almost got through it without messing up the date, and then I said 23rd. It's disappointing.
Have you noticed that a lot of places are now saying December holidays? You're not allowed to say. Even Xmas is not allowed anymore.
Wow.
It's just December holidays.
I guess that's inclusive.
Well,
So happy Honda days.
Do you think that there will be a lot of gifts under the tree for little X?
Oh,
Yes.
you mean what's his face's kid?
Yeah.
How do they pronounce it? It doesn't pronounce anything like how it's spelled.
I think it's Kyle, right? I swear I think I read an article that said it was Kyle.
Yeah, probably.
That's insane.
What do you think the net worth of his Christmas will be?
Just $250,000.
Oh, you know who hates that?
The boiler.
What about his other kids? Doesn't he have like 5 or 6 other kids?
Boiler Snake's angry about the bowl. That's my job.
That's the boiler snake mating call, or it sounds too much like the boiler
I
snake.
heard the salad bowl, and it was like, ooh, my turn.
Well, Mr. Musk will probably. How much time do you think he spends with that family during Christmas?
It's probably a very carefully apportioned, like 8.4% of his waking hours.
He's just the whole time. He's like, ugh, gotta get out of here. Didn't really
He's
want
just tweeting.
this. But he does have perhaps some good news to bring to his family, other than his billions of dollars, for the Christmas season.
Boring Company proposes massive Vegas expansion following monorail bankruptcy. So they want to get from Mandalay Bay to the airport in 3 minutes, because right now it takes like 30 minutes, I guess.
It's going to be the same old Teslas and tunnels situation. But they think that's going to be a huge improvement. Now, the monorail, unfortunately, because Vegas has basically been shut down for 2020, has gone into bankruptcy. Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Rip.
Good timing, I guess. If the vaccine thing picks up, he could just snap up that business. We won't discuss the vaccine stuff.
I would like to know how Boring Company plans to address its required safety concerns to do with the diameter of the tunnel and also extracting passengers in the event of, something goes wrong.
Probably going to try to subvert the government to change those laws.
Nice.
That's what I would do if I were him. Facebook is doing something that threatens a lot of publishing businesses. That's made them very angry, and unfortunately, also us, because this is what we do.
It is.
Facebook is developing a tool to summarize articles so you don't have to read them. We all get the privilege of seeing the future because we are making it.
What a cryptic, sub-headline.
I think that this is going to be bad, but can you imagine the headlines from the Level 1 News during this? It's like Facebook's algorithm is a partisan hack because it summarized this article as this, when the important thing about that was this.
There's definitely, and you know what? I think what you just described, this article was about a lot more than this. And they picked that one thing out because it was the most salacious. But I would say New York Times and Wall Street Journal are on the end of needlessly wordy. And then you've got Axios, which literally is just already giving you bullet points. Axios is no nonsense. And I think that on both ends of the spectrum, you lose something.
Yeah.
So this is way too far in the... And plus the AI, it's going to get some stuff wrong. It's going to be weird.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll see it. So we'll see how it works. Now, if we were to have an analog of the big tech companies right now with professional wrestling, what would be happening is that Epic Games and Apple would be in the ring having just a hell of a match, and down runs Mark Zuckerberg with the chair.
Facebook wades into Fortnite makers' dispute with Apple. Social network company also dials up criticism of Apple's plan to allow iPhone users to restrict access to personal data. So what Facebook is after here is the whole users being able to load whatever they want, separate app store kind of a thing. Really, that's their number one goal. So they're saying, yeah, Epic is right because Apple ultimately is in control over everything, and they can make certain apps look better or worse than others. The reality is that Apple has recently made changes when you install the Facebook application. It's like, hey, Facebook wants all these permissions. Are you okay with that? Most people are going to say no.
Because why would you?
Why would you indeed?
Why would you want Facebook to have that? But that is an existential threat to Facebook, and they know it. And they're worried, and they're pulling out all the stops.
Facebook hits back at Apple with a second critical newspaper ad. Apple versus the free internet, where the free internet would allow you to do things like install Facebook and have them share all of your data surreptitiously.
Krista, I bet a lot of design hours went into this full page ad. What do you think about it?
I guess it would look good in black and white.
No, they probably printed it in color.
That's so much more expensive, though, if it's going in a newspaper.
What do you think about that? Would you call that color salmon?
Yeah, it's fine. It definitely gets the point across.
It does. It's not eye catching though.
Yeah, not at all. Also, like, I see that Facebook logo in the bottom, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah. So Apple has rolled out this, which is what you were just talking about. Who is going to click allow? I mean, read that. Who is going to click allow?
It wants to track your activity across other apps and websites. Yeah, no one is going to click allow.
And so that's tough times if you're Facebook, because that is where your money comes from. So I'm sure that will heat up. And Apple is not just getting heat from Facebook. Obviously, Epic. What was the other big name that they were getting into it with? Was it like Zoom or somebody? Anyway, you know, they're trying to get this 30% out of everybody. And it's a crazy big number, and people more and more are standing up against it.
Major U.S. news publishers joined the Coalition for App Fairness advocacy group to fight the Apple tax. This one, they're more focused on the new news publishers here are more focused on the Amazon side of things. So Amazon was playing hardball with Apple, and so Apple said, all right, you know what? We will agree to not 30%, it'll be 15%, and in some cases 0% if you're using things like Amazon Prime. And so the U.S. news publishers are saying, wait a minute, we want that same deal. And Apple's like, not so fast.
Big names, too. I mean, look at these.
The AP, the New York Times, NPR, ESPN, Vox, the Washington Post, Meredith Bloomberg, NBCU, and the Financial Times, and many others. So I think it would be in Apple's best interest to just go ahead and do this. I mean, it's not even with that. Like, let's assume that Apple like agrees to everything that they want. Do you think that that's going to cost Apple any money? They're still going to make money, just not as much.
Oh, but that can't happen.
I think they agree.
They need that third yacht.
They opened that Pandora's box when they dealt with Amazon, and I'm sure that Tim Cook is reminding Bezos of that at every moment that he can.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. You have to be careful, though, because if you go too far and those names, I mean, think about all those names and think about the articles that we talk about. That's a huge portion of them. If all of a sudden they're just dogging Apple's products, then all of a sudden you're not selling $500 headphones. That's a spiral. So we'll see. Now, Apple, in their defense, maybe not on this exact topic, but with the Facebook thing and with this thing that they're doing, it does seem like they're being a lot more consumer friendly when it comes to privacy.
Apple launches new App Store privacy labels so you can see how iOS apps use your data. And some of these are hilarious. Like the Facebook one is like 7 miles long because it's like, hey, is this data? Is this data? Is this data? Is this data? Is this data?
It's hard to see that.
Yeah.
Maybe they got a better. No, they don't.
Now here's the thing that nobody's talking about, and it kills me because these articles are missing this. It's like Apple values your privacy and blah blah blah, and it won't share. It's a little bit of a monkey's paw situation, I guarantee you. Because if you think for 1 second that from now until the end of time, Apple is not going to monetize that data in any way, you are sadly mistaken. They will absolutely monetize that data. The first pass for monetizing that data is being between you and the advertiser. So they're going to go to an advertiser and say, hey, we've got a bunch of people that we think based on our profiles that they're going to buy a toaster. Does anybody want to buy ad space for people looking for a toaster? And then Apple will, show you ads, or Apple will have things that lead to ads. They might not be in a financial position to worry about that now. They might wait on it, but eventually it will happen.
There's somebody in the comments that's keeping track of every week where you mention the monkey's paw. You're on 4.
I did notice that last week. It made me laugh.
Sorry. I'm just fascinated with it because it's like, it's like I wish that my privacy would be respected, and it's like and it's like, okay, all of these companies are going to go out of business except for Apple, and then Apple is absolutely going to monetize your data. So it's not, you didn't really gain anything privacy wise.
We all have our catchphrases that we rely on. It sucks when you listen back to it, but what are you going to do? Go to some sort of training for broadcasting? No.
Get better at what we do? No. Someone once pointed out how often me and Ryan say like, and for like a week or two after, I struggled to talk normally because
you realize you just
noticed.
You realize you just said like a week or two after?
Yeah, I know. It's not a good habit. Now I'm going to be super conscious of it the rest of the broadcast. But
I also notice it more when other people do it. And a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to
it
fix
kind
it.
of replaces said, which is, I think, why people use it so much.
Aleister Crowley said the way to deal with that is to affix in your mind a behavior that you want to remove. And then when you do it, you cut your arm.
Whoa.
And not only does the pain reinforce it, but as you're just doing stuff during the day, you're like, oh, my arm's cut. Oh, right. I did that thing. I should stop doing that. I've not tried it, but he said it was a really good thing to do.
We don't condone that method, but if you want to try it.
Now we talked about Qualcomm. They brought out their new 888 chip, and it had the modem on the chip. And I think Wendell brought up, it's like, how's Apple going to respond to this? Because that's been a big bone of contention in the past. And maybe this gives us shed some light on exactly what they're thinking.
Apple starts to work on its own 5G modem. Oh, this makes me so angry. Not because Apple's working on a 5G modem. None of that. It's just, I want you to think back to that Qualcomm lawsuit. There was this knockdown, drag out, anti-competitive Qualcomm, lawsuit thing. And the FTC was convinced that Qualcomm was doing something anti-competitive here, when the reality was that Intel's modem just wasn't as good as Qualcomm's. Like, that was the whole problem. And Apple's fix for that was to, in software, gimp the performance of the Qualcomm modem to make it equal to the Intel modem, because reviewers not like us, but other reviewers in the space would test that and be like, that's weird. iPhones that have the Intel modem don't perform as good. And they ultimately did that anyway and found that, for iPhones of that model, the battery performance was terrible. And there's other stuff that Qualcomm had in that lawsuit, like copies of emails from Apple people that they sent Qualcomm's internal stuff to Intel people to say, hey, you should copy whatever Qualcomm is doing here because their modem is really good. Which is, not only is that unethical, that should have gotten the whole Qualcomm lawsuit thrown out immediately. So if you think for 1 second that Apple is building their 5G modem here ethically, you are wrong.
We lost our video driver in the middle of that, so hopefully you got it all. In the past, it's been okay. I'm just going to assume it's okay.
Woo! But yeah, so Apple's going to do this, and it's going to be fine. But there's the specter of stolen intellectual property here.
We'll see. Now, we just released another video, and we actually I recorded it in October, and it didn't come out for a long time. But in it, I made a joke about Stadia and how no one uses it. And people were quick to point out that people are using Stadia now, almost purely because Cyberpunk might run so poorly on their hardware, they went to Stadia to get around it.
That is interesting.
That's a good use case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not something we really considered before, but makes sense. And that means that it's going to be your only option to play that game in certain scenarios.
Google Stadia is now available on iOS. We covered that they would be doing this, the how is that they're doing it through the web browser. The web browser's gotten sophisticated enough that it can have a reasonable Stadia client experience in a web browser. So this way, Google doesn't have to get approval for every single game individually, because it's basically just a glorified web page.
Which is stupid, because functionally, it is no different.
Yeah. It's Apple desperately trying to keep the magic smoke. It's like, no, the genie must not be allowed to escape the bottle.
Yeah. But some people did. Well, I saw some comments and they were like, hey, I've got this garbage video card. I got 14 frames per second, so I went to Stadia, and it's fine. So I guess that's a good use case.
Makes sense. We did a video on playing Cyberpunk on a Raspberry Pi, a handheld Raspberry Pi, and that's basically how it works. It just streams it from a good computer using the Google Steam Link, and that's not a terrible experience.
Yeah. So we did a story a while back about Amazon bringing out this new service that had to do with fitness, but they wanted a full 3D scan of your body. And a lot of people were creeped out by that. But it seems like they're doubling down on that technology, not just for fitness.
Amazon wants to scan your body to make perfectly fitting shirts. They're going to, quote unquote, 3D print a shirt that is form fitting.
$25 for a t-shirt. It's a little steep.
Store.level1text.com.
All I'm thinking though is like, assuming these are all more or less custom made, isn't that not expensive enough? Like, who are you paying to sew this to your exact dimensions?
Well, so
and how much are you paying them?
what they didn't say for sure, but this other brand they were talking about that does this for dresses is they do micro sizes, they call it. So they have a dress that comes in 99 sizes.
Wow.
And the machine knows how to make all 99 sizes, but they don't make any of them up front. They wait till you buy it. So they scan you, they give you a number between 1 and 99, and then they print your dress or sew your dress or whatever.
Neat.
And they might be losing money on this to open up a new...
It says
Amazon's.
t-shirts are made in the U.S. from imported fabric.
Yeah. So
Huh.
I look forward to the day when we have a local Replimat, and I can just go to the local Replimat and get whatever it was printed on demand.
you know what that's going to do, though, is going to make you way more aware of any sort of changes in weight that you experience during the year.
I'm going to have my summer and winter clothes because that already happens.
Yeah. Well, that happens to almost everybody, I think. And like the pandemic, a lot of people have that kind of thing going on. AWS is, they're killing it during the pandemic because people are loving using their services, and they keep coming up with new things. This one's not new necessarily, but it is kind of a fringe thing that is not offered by a lot of the cloud services.
AWS introduces new chaos engineering as a service offering. So what chaos engineering does is it allows you to dashboard and inject errors into your infrastructure so that it makes it more resilient theoretically. You can make calls take too long or make, in a deliberate outage or something like that so that you can better engineer how things fail. They're doing this because of the whole, remember how like everybody had everything in US East, the US East region? It turns out that it's non-trivial technically if you want to deploy your application into multiple availability zones and balance the load. And it's also non-trivial from a cost standpoint. So they're hoping this will make some of that engineering a little easier.
And it's kind of a do-it-yourself. It's a service you get with AWS. The second biggest company now, I guess that you would say, is Gremlin, but that's as a service, so it's not quite the same. Also, I bet that a lot of people at Gremlin are getting emails from the Amazon acquisition team. One of the things that is happening after 2020 is that people really seem to have soured on California. The governor kind of embarrassed himself, had some really extreme lockdowns, and didn't do them himself. Some of the lawmakers from California are very unpopular right now. So where do you go? It seems like the answer is always the same for everybody who leaves California.
Oracle is moving its headquarters from Silicon Valley to Austin, Texas. You know who else moved? Musk.
Joe Rogan.
How do you feel about that, Wendell? How, knowing Oracle will have moved?
I think that it was inevitable. I think it's probably been 2 or 3 years since I had that specific complaint, but I'd always lamented that I was surprised that Oracle had not opened up an office in the Eastern District of Texas for all their patent lawsuits, because Oracle has almost fully completed their transition from technology company to litigation company. So it's like they're just litigating their old customers using their product.
Good time to be a law firm in Texas, I bet.
Yeah.
A lot of people looking for. They might keep their old ones. I don't know.
I guess at this point you're just trading all the wildfire risks to hurricane risk, right? If you're moving from California to Texas.
You could probably go North Texas and they'd be away from most of the hurricane threat, right?
Yeah. Texas is pretty big.
You'd still get some heavy rain, but it wouldn't be as bad as if you're on the coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fine with that. They have storm shelters in their billion-dollar mansions, I'm sure. Now, you probably don't need this headline if you are currently shopping for a PS5 or an Xbox or a video card or a hard drive or basically anything that has to do with a PC. You already know about this.
From Reuters is reporting that the global chip shortages are threatening the production of laptops, smartphones, and more. Makers of cars and electronic devices, TVs, and smartphones are sounding the alarm bells about a global shortage of chips, which is causing manufacturing delays and consumer demand bounces back from the crisis. So a lot of holiday spending, and it's not just Samsung and TSMC that we're talking about. There are a lot of other components that are in short supply. So it may not even be chip production that we're facing as a severe limitation. So going into 2021, things probably not going to get a lot better, according to Reuters. Just FYI.
Unfortunately.
In related news, UK telling people not to stockpile food because they're totally okay, even though Brexit's happening. Might stockpile a little food too.
You should have been stockpiling chips this entire time. You stockpiled the wrong thing. Toilet
That's
paper
what
was
you
the wrong
really
choice.
need.
We should do a level 1 canning video. It's like introducing canning technology. Here's how you can avoid botulism.
We're going to just put ram sticks in there?
It's the technology of canning. You be canning food.
There are some videos about that on YouTube, but they're always like filmed by someone's grandma. So
Are we
they're a
gonna-
little bit shaky.
Is your new kitchen ready to be a set for that?
Yeah, that would be fine.
You're going to get so many comments of people saying, I want to see that.
I thought about the NVIDIA video with Jensen. I am planning a video where I'm in front of my stove because he was in front of his stove in the kitchen because of the whole lockdown thing, and it's a really nice stove. But he's got this decorative thing behind his stove, and it's like this really intricate carving thing. And let me tell you, I made steaks, like the skillet pan grill thing, and then you throw it in the oven, and they were delicious. They were amazing. It's the first time I've had gas heat for cooking, but that wasn't the thing. It was the grease from the steaks, and so like cleanup was really easy because everything was stainless steel. But the whole time I was cleaning it, I was thinking, man, cleaning grease off of Jensen's thing, like there's no way that he actually uses that because you would never get all the grease out of the carving. You just never would.
That's why I don't understand when, like, in the 90s, the whole trend was, like, tiled countertops. Because I'm like, doesn't stuff get down in the grout lines? And, like, how hard is that to scrub out every time?
You are so immersed in your nerd world that you just assume that everybody's seen this NVIDIA video. And it's a common talking point.
Engagement challenge. Have you seen the Jensen's kitchen and his colorful spatulas?
Well, I don't know about stove technology, but it's been a while since we talked about trading technology. Now, back in the day, this was probably back almost when we started doing this, right? Like 2016, 2017. The microwaves were making a big deal. Remember when they bought like a 10 by 10 plot of land somewhere in Chicago just so they could put a microwave tower there? Yeah. And then somebody else bought another one to try to block it. Like, that's the crazy lengths they will go to because they're basically just stealing money. And the faster you can go, the more money you can steal, which moves the state of the art. Is this overall a good thing? I don't know.
High-frequency traders push closer to light speed with cutting-edge cables. So this talks about how the speed of light through glass fiber optic is only about 2/3 the speed of light in a vacuum. However, these glass fiber optic cables are hollow core, so the light stays in the hollow glass core, and that means that it travels much closer to sea.
It's paywall. They have a better picture, but you can kind of see here. It's kind of a honeycomb structure, and the light is traveling inside these little pockets here.
It's pretty.
And
They should have like an interactive art piece where you can watch that.
And it's nanoseconds, but those nanoseconds get you in front of the next trader and make you money. Which I don't know. For what I understand about efficient markets, that's not what they're designed to do.
I like the greater trend, I think, is that there's so much all of the, it's not arbitrage, but all of the non-friction in the market is captured by all of these things that move so quickly, which makes everything very rigid and immobile.
That's what they claim is the reason they should exist, is that they, quote unquote, provide liquidity. So you have something that's not trading very much, but now all of a sudden it is, but it's all robots. So if something goes wrong, the buy side is just going to go to zero because those robots are going to pull out immediately. And you're going to be like, wait, I thought this was a liquid market. I can't get out. And speaking of markets, it's funny because every time we do a story like this, the headline is always out of date because it moves so fast. I think today we're looking at like 22 something.
24.
Right? Did it go to 24?
It was 23,879 last time I looked at it.
Wow.
Bitcoin breaks above 20,000 for the first time ever. Wow. Most valuable cryptocurrency is 5.6 higher. Remember when it was like $100 and we were like, $100.
Remember it was $8,000 when we were saying that?
That was like at the start of Level 1 because we would do a segment at the start of every news that was like, what's the Bitcoin price today?
Oh, it's at 22,752 right now.
Okay, so I'm back down.
Wow, that's still a lot. That's a lot of money.
Still impressive.
It's quite a bit, yeah.
I don't even remember. Oh, you know what? We kind of already did this one.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah,
did it on the
sort of
government
that.
side, but not the business side.
Whatever. Let's just.
Bloomberg has an article about the Google services outage. This is more from the business side of things. It's like how much, how much did it cost? Basically, is what we're looking at. Is this something that we can tolerate in our existence as human beings? Is something that's this outage? So probably what, like $100 million an hour in losses?
It was down for what, 45 minutes?
No, some of it was down for the better part of 5 or 6 hours.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that it had something to do with it was one point of failure, one update.
Authentication, yeah.
They've traced that down to at least one team, I'm sure. It's a bad time to be that team. I don't know if their Christmas bonus is going to go through this year.
Our hearts go out to you, that team. Sacrifice a bull or something.
Or your children, perhaps. Another story that we are following up on from last week has to do with Google's ethics department. Yes, they have one. Really, they do. But maybe they don't pay that much attention to them, and that could cause problems.
Google AI researcher's departure ignites new conflict over ethics. So this is Bloomberg Business Week, and this is a follow-up from last week. Tensions are escalating. So Gebru was out. It was like basically an ultimatum. And then the CEO got involved and said, oh, okay, this didn't really go down the way that we had imagined. But the rest of her team and people from other departments in Google, like a lot of people, have signed on to a letter to say, we need these changes or these assurances from management or we're out too.
There she is. I will admit, when I saw that picture, my first thought was, you never want to see that haircut walk into a meeting. That's bad news. And then in the article, they pointed out that like people attack her haircut all the time, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, it's not great.
But no, they're saying that like you're not allowed to do that. That's not only super racist, but it's like demeaning to women, and it's basically physical violence.
I mean, it is shit though. I mean, I don't have a fro, but my hair's very curly, and people, they expect it to be straight, which is stupid.
Oh, I'm not saying it doesn't
spend hours every day doing that. Like,
it doesn't need to be straight, but like maybe try to get it under some kind of control. I think you're making a statement with that on purpose.
Where do you draw the line? I mean, could I like have, could I grow my beard out really long and have some sort of like festival of winter thing going on in my beard?
I think you got to.
All the time in tech, lots of dudes have crazy long beards and no one says anything to them because they're like, oh, they're good at what they do. That's all I care about. They're not customer interfacing.
You got to round it out a little bit. I feel like these little wispy flyaways. That's my problem.
That is bullshit.
Listen, that's how I feel.
Yeah, hyperbole.
Clearly, it's not acceptable to the rest of the world. Now, this one, I was wondering, because you added this story, is there something in particular that excites you here, or are you just trying to deflect the fact that everyone knows that you're an AMD shill?
I am excited about this because, well, there's a notable absence here though, which is perhaps not good.
Okay.
So Intel has announced a whole bunch of new Optane-based storage. This is really cool. For one, remember that Intel basically sold off all of their NAND products, and at least one product here still incorporates NAND, the Intel H20. But mostly Intel was announcing a bunch of new stuff with Optane, and I was really worried about it because Optane is a legit, insanely awesome technology. It's just it costs an arm and a leg and another leg and maybe also an arm and maybe somebody else's arm. It's really, really expensive. But enterprises can't get enough of it, so they're packing in the density, they're packing in the technology, and it does look really, really awesome. But the H20 is not going to cut it for the enthusiast market. So there's new products for data center, and the data center products look really good. I did not see a successor for the 900 or the 905. I think that's a huge problem. I think Intel's making a mistake there.
I guess.
Or they've just given up.
Do you think that if we have chips for these, let's assume that we do, does it still hurt storage prices if I can't get anything else to pair them with?
I think that NAND production is actually at a glut right now. So,
but if I can't get any RAM or video card to put in that new machine,
oh yeah, that's a problem.
Am I still buying storage?
Yeah, no. I think that no, that's definitely a problem. But this is also enterprise grade stuff, which follows completely different economics. Like Amazon and other companies like that buy so much stuff that this has all happened behind closed door negotiations months ago, and we would have no idea.
The one thing about Apple is that they have been experimenting with moving out of China, because there for a while it was very unpopular to be in China. Since then, China has kind of just destroyed Hong Kong, and people forgot, I feel like, in some ways.
That makes me sad.
And it's sad. But they had already put some of these things into motion, and they had moved. Of course, Taiwan is an obvious one. But then it turns out that Taiwan companies also outsource. So you have this like Russian doll of outsourcing. This one's not working out for them.
Hundreds riot at iPhone factory in India over exploitation claims. Workers of the Taiwanese-run Winston Infocom Manufacturing near Bangalore smashed glass panels with rods and flipped cars on their side. Local media reported the workers had not been paid for up to 4 months and were being forced to do extra shifts. The Taiwanese company said, "We're looking into it. We don't know. That sounds weird."
This is the security enforcement team that is now at the place. And they've got some footage of the destruction that you can check out. People not happy. That's expensive. Did that glass wall just tank that bat shot?
It did.
Wow. Well-built glass walls.
That clip of Lucille Bluth watching the clip on news that's like, a woman drove her kids off of a bridge into a river, and she goes, "Good for her." That's how I feel when I look at this and find out they haven't been paid in 4 months. Like, good for you.
Now, the story was updated with responses from the company. They kind of glossed over the whole "we're not paying them" thing.
Yeah.
They said,
Yeah, of course they did.
They said that they were like properly paid or would be or something like that, but they didn't go into any details.
Would be doesn't pay your rent for 4 months, so screw that.
Yeah.
You should expect some riots if you're not paying your employees.
They also are claiming, and this is a really common one that is used, is that these aren't actually their employees that are rioting. These are external forces who are just coming in to foment outrage.
Right.
Yeah.
They're happy to continue just working overtime for no pay. They love the company.
Yeah, they said their overtime was an insane amount too, right?
Yeah.
It's just, working them around the clock and not paying them. That's the
Something like
accusation.
this happened earlier this year with garment workers. I don't know that they rioted about it, but like a bunch of Western companies put in orders for clothing at the beginning of the year. And then when everything slowed down because of the thing, they then decided, well, we're not going to change the work order, and we're not going to pay them. We're just going to just disappear. And a bunch of companies got called out for that. I think H&M was one. I think one of the Kardashian clothing brands was one.
Where were these clothing factories?
I think in Bangladesh.
Oh, okay. So almost the same exact story.
Yeah.
Here's where we find out that it's all owned by the same property company or something. All the factories.
I thought that didn't Tim Cook have that thing where he's like, you know, we look more into our company's supply chains than anybody.
No, yeah.
Yeah, that's not true at all. Unfortunately, like tech especially is really difficult.
The part that he left out of that statement was that we look into it so we can hide what we find because it's real bad.
Yeah.
Now, this device, I did not expect to see this so soon. This seems like a huge...
Seems like a steal.
And I wonder how good it is. Now, they do have some examples here, but I did not think that we were this close.
NextMind ships its real-time brain-computer interface dev kit for $3.99. So you should check out the demo video of this because it is kind of mind-blowing. See what I did there? $400? I think Level 1 can afford that.
Now, that's this little hockey puck in the back that is reading your visual cortex. And so it is. It's based on your eye movements, but it's not looking at your eyes. It's looking at your brain. Now, for that $4.99, you get like a bunch of APIs and SDKs that go with it, which includes Unity. You can start game development with this as a controller.
Neat.
And they have some examples here. They've got like, Arkanoid and just some really basic stuff that you can already do with your brain.
Woo.
There is a...
Part of me almost doesn't believe this, but I will be super interested to see if it actually works when people get their hands on it.
I wonder, Krista, you have such a thick mane of hair.
Yeah.
Would that be an issue? Would that create like a layer of...
In one of the videos, they have a dude wearing a baseball cap, and it's like it's attached to the outside of the baseball cap, so I guess it can read through the fabric. I'm not sure.
I was surprised. I had built one of the open EEG things years ago, and it was good enough to play Tux Racer. So like with Tux Racer, you're basically just sliding down a hill, and like you can go left or right or slow down or speed up, and just with a few sensors, stuck to your head with like the medical tape, it was plenty good enough to control Tux.
Aren't you a little worried though with all these APIs and SDKs that all that's just not being funneled back to Facebook to be mined?
Yeah, whenever they come out with the Oculus Brain Scan Edition, that is absolutely going to a dashboard on Mark Zuckerberg's wall.
Well, it's already their stuff. I mean, I'm sure they're watching that without question. We talk a lot about disinformation and foreign meddling, especially with the election. God, all we heard with the election was foreign meddling. So not only in 2020, but also in 2016. It's just, it never stopped. And there's definitely some truth to it because foreign governments, including ours, if you're somewhere else, are definitely trying to take advantages as much as possible. And in Africa, we get a really interesting situation in which there's so much trolling that they're kind of canceling each other out.
French and Russian trolls wrestle for influence in Africa, Facebook says. French. There's an election coming up in the Central African Republic later this month, and so there's a lot of disinformation coming out of France. Really, France? Yeah.
This is an interesting image. I mean, it's kind of lazy, but also kind of like it. These little boxes.
Looks like something
What are they
somebody
painted
3D
with?
printed.
Maybe it's just digital. Are they sitting on a keyboard?
Yeah.
Oh no, it says they're 3D printed. That's why they look kind of
okay.
weird.
Yeah. So yeah, they've discovered that both Russia and France have really big economical, their influence is really big, and they will make a lot of money if their person wins, because their tech companies are rapidly expanding. Remember those numbers from where they're tying it to the national ID?
Oh yeah.
The mobile numbers in Africa are massive.
Yeah.
Because you're way more likely to have a phone than any other sort of computing device.
Yep.
And these countries want a piece of that. How do you get a piece of that on really good terms? You own the politicians. How do you own the politicians? Well, you get the one that you want elected.
This makes me feel very bad, like a bad human being for saying this, but I'm glad it's not the U.S. for once.
Do you think we're in a better situation?
No, we're not in a better situation. I just don't want to feel like we're the only ones to do that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I was like
for once it's not us, and it's like, whew.
I mean, if
It's
you're
like whenever we do a story about people being uneducated or stupid, and it's like, oh, that's Alabama, and it's like, whew, it's not Kentucky.
but if you're going to crap on, the Africans for like, oh, it's like they're uneducated, they don't understand that their politicians are, like corrupt, and it's like, oh, Ajit Pai.
I mean, if you're a citizen in Central Africa, the Central African Republic, and it's like, why would somebody in France want to meddle with our stuff? That doesn't make sense. And then you have to really dig into like tinfoil hat territory, and then it's like, oh.
Or look at the history of Vietnam. That might clear that up for you.
Territory in Africa, like ages ago, they're probably still trying to get that influence there.
Yeah, that was the whole point.
Computers were a mistake.
I read something once that Africa basically never learned as a country to make steel. Ever.
Well, Africa is a continent.
Oh, I'm sorry, continent, yes.
Ooh.
As a continent. But the reason they never learned to make steel is because by the time they wanted steel, there were enough broken down French trucks that it was cheaper to break down the French truck than it was to try and mine.
Oh, that's I can't remember the name. There was a village that had a steel meteor, and they mined it for years instead of making their own, or they had steel that came from a meteor. And it's that old strategy, because it's like they didn't have.
But that also gives us hope for
iron.
The post-apocalypse.
No, it's steel.
We won't have to learn to smelt in the post-apocalypse. We just have to melt down what we've already got and purify it. TikTok is the hottest new social media, despite our government's efforts to destroy it. The kids seem to love it. I don't understand it. I don't know what they're doing. I'm too old for it.
It's just Vine, right? Like, I mean, that seems to be the gist of it. It's just a replacement for Vine.
For some reason, people like it more than Vine. Why is that?
TikTok is the YouTube for people with attention deficit problems.
Which is everybody at this point. But one thing about it, everybody is trying to recreate that magic. Because, like, hey, what about Facebook? This is one they didn't get to buy up. What are they going to do? And they're not the only big name that's trying to basically steal it.
Reddit is buying TikTok rival Dubsmash. What a terrible name.
I think it's because didn't TikTok start out as lip syncing?
Yeah.
Like dub?
Mostly, yeah. Or like dance trends.
They point out that this one is massively popular with women, especially black women. I wonder why this. I've never heard of it. Have you?
Nope.
This is the first I've ever heard of Dubsmash. Well, so Reddit's going to buy it, and they're going to start incorporating it into their little automatic players on Reddit. Which those little videos never load for me.
I've noticed that Reddit seems to be on a suicide mission with their mobile website, that half the links sometimes are like, oh, you need to log in to do this. And it's like, I'm not going to.
Do you want the app?
Yeah.
I'm never going to want the app, Reddit. I'm never going to want it.
No.
And so the election was kind of this, big event. And now that it's over, I mean, kind of over. I think most people understand that it's over.
It's not over.
I think there's a small amount of people who still.
It's just the part of the history book that's like leading up to.
Yeah, I guess. But it was sort of kind of like a demarcation of time. Post-election was a different world. And especially at Facebook, a lot of people, I think, what they saw during the election led to them being severely unhappy.
After the U.S. election, key people are leaving Facebook and torching the company in their departure notes. Departing Facebook employees said the social network's failure to act on hate speech, quote unquote, makes it embarrassing to work here. Well, if that's the only reason that you find it embarrassing to work at Facebook, I don't know what to tell you.
So there's a lot of quotes here, and we won't read them all to you. But you can make what they call a badge post when you leave, which is basically like, your tombstone at Facebook. You said like, here's the summary of my time at Facebook. And they're getting hit pretty hard in those because people aren't very happy with them. They also talk a lot about spooling up this new AI to replace the whole PTSD moderation stuff. And a lot of these people who are leaving are like, I worked on the AI thing. It's not happening. We're not close.
Yeah. That makes sense. Because why would we be close? That would seem to be difficult to impossible.
And our final story is it's an obvious move, but it's also an obviously bad faith move.
In other words, if you still work at Facebook, here's something you need to work on.
This is something that they cannot defend. Don't you think that EU lawmakers are going to crucify them for this?
I would think so, yes.
But technically, they don't have any say in it anymore.
Facebook to move UK users to California terms, avoiding the EU privacy rules. So Facebook is going to shift all of its users in the United Kingdom into user agreements with the corporate headquarters in California, moving them out of their current relationship with Facebook's Irish unit and out of reach of Europe's privacy laws. So the whole Irish tax incentive thing, gone.
Now, you still are under a kind of GDPR in California, but I don't think you risk those big percentage numbers if you mess up.
Right.
That's the thing they're getting away from there. And those numbers just get bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
One of them was like, what, 10%?
10% of annual revenue.
10% of Facebook? That is a staggering number.
Yeah. I don't want to have any sympathy for Facebook, but on the other hand, a lot of the requirements in the EU, like some of the drafts and some of the stuff that they have to do, are ambiguous enough that, they would be hard-pressed to comply. And some of the requirements are directly opposed to their existing business model. So I think that it would be like, asking you or me to cut off. It's like, I'm going to kill you unless you cut off your arm. And, as we learned from the Saw movies, that's really hard.
Oh, we have to cut off our own arm?
Yeah.
Under manual power?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be tough to do.
I mean, that's basically what they're asking for. So I don't see how. I think that the EU would be better if they could propose some idea of what Facebook could do to become compliant and work on it iteratively instead of, trying to stuff the genie back in the bottle with one sweeping.
Well, what they're basically saying is, if you don't cut off your arm, we will take 10% of your blood anytime we feel like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, if they get 2 or 3 of those in a row, they're going to pass out. And,
could be multiple countries.
Yeah. I mean,
because if Facebook is doing something wrong in France, then they're almost surely doing that same thing wrong in Ireland.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's 20%.
So I can kind of sympathize with some of these tech companies because this kind of thing should have been done in law a long time ago. And now we're kind of in this impossible situation where these companies, they just will not be able to do what is necessary to act, ethically under this new framework without more guidance.
But they did get themselves here.
They did get themselves here in fairly short order. Yes, this is true.
Yeah. So I don't think we should. It's two entities that you shouldn't have any empathy for, which are being the EU government and Facebook.
Their motives are sad and transparent. Mostly.
Unfortunately, the battle affects all of the people.
In the context of the people that work there, I was thinking that for the people that work at Facebook, at least some of them think that Facebook's mission is to bring people together and, there's a very humanitarian mission. But in reality, it's let's just make a lot of money.
Well, like the chick with the bad hair.
Yeah.
I bet she believed up until that moment.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm changing the world.
That's what really makes it sad because she does seem like I'm changing the world, like that's a good thing to encourage. But yeah, then Facebook's like no, or Google's just like no.
She got into the identity politics a lot, though.
Yeah.
Although she is right that the AI real bad at the black people, real bad. Another thing I noticed about that article that I should have brought up then, but we're at the end. This is the end of the program. Was it the New York Times or Wall Street Journal? One of the two. They now capitalize white and black every time. When did we start doing that?
That's probably that article.
I'm sure there's an editorial memo that went around.
Is that? I wonder if they. I remember in college we had like the MLA and the APA. I wonder if that's on a thing in that.
And when they say like in that article, they said white male and black woman, and they also capitalized male and woman in that context.
Interesting.
Which
I wonder what the cause was for that change.
I don't know. It's weird because I'm pretty sure the proper English rules is you don't capitalize those.
If it's some kind of homage to like past sins, I want to know what we're changing in the literary style to make up for the past sins of leaded gasoline.
Also, news organizations have a different set of standards compared to like a paper you'd write for an English class.
Yeah, but I've never noticed it before. It's new.
Yeah.
This is a new thing. Maybe chat engagement challenge. Do you have any insight? Do you work at a publication? Have they given you this directive?
Maybe the style guide for leaded gasoline should be anytime somebody mentions leaded gasoline, it gets a strike through as an homage to all the people that died of lead poisoning and lead-related health complications.
Maybe we should just stick with the way things are because that's the standard. It makes a lot of sense. It makes it easier to communicate.
I almost made it through that with a straight face. I don't see how you do it sometimes. It's like you well, no, I really think we should eat children. It's like, how do you keep a straight face?
That's a strong argument. So many of them.
That's not even sarcasm for Ryan.
All right, Krista.
All right. We will see you guys Friday. Bye.
You won't see Krista on Friday.
Yeah, I don't have my cam up, but
She's a disappointed voice.
Burp.
All right, see you then.